Good evening, everybody. My name is JJ. Tonight we're just going to be having a little discussion regarding the current situation with our president. And Kamala Harris, of course, a little bit about Joe Biden. But seriously on this topic, just enough is enough. This absolutely wasn't right from the beginning. So after President Trump wins on November 3rd, do the Democrats just believe they get to carry on trying to find ways that will allow them to remove a sitting president they disagree with and honestly just don't like? Or only if it's this current president? Nancy Pelosi's 25th Amendment proposal has as much to do with removing Joe Biden as it does with removing President Trump. Say they manage to manipulate the vote enough to squeak Biden in office. They will have him removed swiftly and replaced with Kamala Harris. If you disagree with me, please, I would like to hear from you. I would like to hear from anyone with any opposing or even a slightly different opinion. Their entire plan this election is to ensure President Trump is no longer our president. It doesn't matter how they make that happen. It is just something that must happen. And anyone with a reasonable amount of common sense and a decent understanding of our current political climate can likely see what's going on here. They fully intend to manipulate their way into a Joe Biden victory if they can pull it off. I don't think they stand a chance, no matter what they do or how often they slander and blame President Trump for problems they've clearly caused. President Trump has literally kept every single promise he could keep. Of course, he's had to get very aggressive with the people seeking to destroy him. I don't blame him for that at all. I'm actually proud to have a president that is willing to fight for his beliefs, no matter how it affects him personally. He is also willing to stand up and fight for we the people. Had the Democrats and a Democratic majority House not spent so much time obstructing our duly elected president and attempting to impeach him for no reason, and of course every reason, he likely would have completed everything and then some. They block, delay, project, pander, incite, obfuscate, interfere, object, they reclaim their time, they foment, they accuse, they mislead and deceive, they deny facts, they peddle falsehoods, and ultimately they are attempting to quite literally perpetuate impeachment while finding a way to pull off their coup. In 2020 America, it's sometimes difficult to truly wrap your head around this, though the facts are there if you want to find them. At this point, the Democrats and all the never-Trumpers involved in this very obvious attempt and effort to unlawfully remove a sitting United States president are, in my personal opinion, committing seditious conspiracy. The most absurd part of it to me is they aren't really even trying to hide this fact. If you choose to believe that their cause in removing President Trump is justified and righteous, well, then you're clearly one of the millions of our fellow Americans that are either willfully ignorant of the truth or just so deeply afflicted with Trump derangement syndrome that in the last 4 years you've likely transitioned to a point where you'll only believe what specific individuals and organizations tell you, regardless if there is data and supporting documents that definitively and irrefutably establish a fact-based truth that goes against what you're being told to believe. It just doesn't matter to you anymore. Just can't be true. The people who have provided that information are liars. So are the people or groups that completed the research. At this point, you believe that anyone who works for the Trump administration must absolutely be a devious, deceptive, racist, and that by now has been completely brainwashed by President Donald Trump. So they clearly cannot be trusted or believed. This man, who is said to be so intellectually incapable of being our president, is also somehow still capable of brainwashing some highly intelligent and educated individuals. Wow. Really seems as if he is only lacking the intelligence expected to sit in that office if it fits their current story. Of course, they need him to be a manipulative criminal mastermind. And, well then, poof. Now he is just that. If I personally was an individual who absolutely could not stand President Trump and truly wanted to see him removed from office as badly as these people do, I still tend to believe that I would have figured out by now that the seemingly unbiased media organizations I choose to watch and the politicians I follow too closely maybe aren't quite as unbiased as they claim to be. And not due to some obscure statement made by President Trump or one of his brainwashed zombies, but strictly based upon their own reporting and behavior towards and about this man. I truly tend to lean more towards believing that the vast majority of my fellow Americans are being willfully ignorant, not actually believing most of the things the people they support are saying. You all know as well as I do that President Trump has done an amazing job as our president. Do all President Trump supporters wish that sometimes he would just not say anything and insist on constantly needing to make that comment? Sure we do, but we quickly return to reality. It was the left's constant lies, their convenient mistruths, attacks, outright fictional stories that intentionally tried to play to their narrative, created the problem they have. The president has a right to defend himself, using the president's own words at times, and far too often, and presenting them in a manner that will cast as much doubt and confusion onto any given situation or any statement made as is humanly possible, all with the sole intention of misleading the American people. This is who we have calling our president and all who support him every derogatory and inflammatory name they can come up with. While it may be true that occasionally they'll use President Trump's own words, maybe even clips of him saying exactly what they claim he said, yet they'll do so not bothering to include any context at all, any form of setting the clip up. So you could play a clip of our POTUS making a statement, yet not bother allowing your audience to have the facts around why it was said. Why would you ever want to tell the truth about any situation? We've obviously gotten adjusted to the one and only fact the liberal left and the mainstream media come anywhere near anymore. And that would be the fact they quite literally don't bother with facts, truth, and actual reporting anymore. Just one tired narrative after another, all to ultimately make President Trump look bad. When in reality, you truly are only making yourselves look bad. And at this point, almost 4 years since President Trump won the 2016 election, here we still find ourselves. I think we all knew the fits, tantrums, refusal to accept the results, and hatred for this POTUS would not stop overnight. Though as for myself, I'd be lying if I said that I believed then that just weeks before the 2020 election, we'd still be dealing with all of these absurdities except so much more. It's almost shocking if it weren't just status quo now for the liberal and anti-Trump faction of our government and country. And again, every single time something absolutely outrageous occurs, and I tell myself that they have finally maxed out. There's just absolutely no way they can top this. They always somehow manage to do just that. Every single time it happens, I'm absolutely blown away. Strictly because of how extreme an act they must commit, simply to outdo the insanely extreme nonsense they committed the last time I said that there's no possible way they can top this. And on it goes. Seemingly endless hissy fit has no end in sight. I fully believe that our duly elected President, Donald J. Trump, will handily defeat Joe Biden on November 3rd, even with all the misdirection and collusion being committed by the Democrats this year. I still believe that President Trump has no problem easily defeating this puppet candidate on November 3rd. Now, after that happens, what are we in for this time? You can likely expect more of the same. There will likely be far less enthusiasm for their protests this year, though nonetheless you can be sure they'll still absolutely be crying for the next 4 years. I've fairly definitively figured out one absolute truth. As far as I'm concerned, you could essentially just call this an opinion due to it actually being my opinion. I really have no supporting evidence or documentation to really support this claim or back it up, completely. This doesn't mean it isn't out there somewhere. Just that I can't get my hands on it, being such a lowly independent journalist who is literally just starting my journey in this field. I truly believe virtually anything the Democrats have accused or continue to accuse President Trump of committing, they likely have committed or are committing themselves. That very action or act. I'm sure this is not a revolutionary school of thought, or most people who hear this opinion, I believe that most intelligent and objective Americans likely have a similar belief. It's just gotten to a point now where something must be done. We can no longer allow these Democrats, led by Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, to get away with this outrageous and seditious behavior any longer. It's literally time to put a stop to it. In my opinion, they are committing a seditious conspiracy. That is pretty much an easy crime to put on them. Really, you could almost charge a fairly large chunk of the current sitting Democratic leadership in Washington, D.C. with this crime, as well as the previous administration, including Obama, Biden, Clinton, Comey, Strzok, Page, Steele, etc., etc. From there, you could virtually put a who's who list together of current and former Democratic and a few Republican congressmen, congresswomen, and senators. I'm not going to start with that tonight. I'm going to end this first video there. And I'll put a fresh set together, personal opinions, facts, and of course, what I may or we all may hope will happen soon. So look for my next video tomorrow. And remember to follow me on Twitter. It's at JacobParsley8. I'll always follow back. Appreciate it if you provide me a few thoughts about this video, whether it's regarding anything I discussed in this video or just have a compliment or critique of any facet of it. I really would greatly appreciate any of the above or any thoughts you have. It helped me greatly in building the page, or building the show, and building the videos, making them better, possibly working on the way that I present them. But if you have any questions for me, feel free to ask them on my Twitter feed, and I'll be sure to respond fairly quickly. So until tomorrow, good night, and of course, keep America great by voting for Donald J. Trump November 3rd.